أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا دائم الفضل على البرية، يا باسط اليدين بالعطية، يا صاحب المواهب السنية، صل على محمد وآله خير الورى سجية، واغفر لنا يا ذا العلا في هذه العشية. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء، وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء، وخضع لها كل شيء، وذل لها كل شيء، وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء، وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء، وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء، وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء، وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس، يا نور يا قدوس، يا نور يا قدوس، يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع، أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا، وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعة. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته، وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته، وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك، وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك، وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا، ولا لقبائحي ساترا، ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي، ظلمت نفسي، وتجرأت بجهلي، وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي، كم من قبيح سترته، وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلته، وكم من عثار وقيته، وكم من مكروه دفعته، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي، وأفرط بي سوء حالي، وقصرت بي أعمالي، وقعدت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أملي، وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي. يا سيدي، فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تسجين عدوي، فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك، وخالفت بعد أوامرك، فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا، مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي، يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي. هبني لابتداء كرمك وصالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته أو تبعد من أدنيته أو تشرد من آويته أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادحا وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة وعلى ضمائر حوات من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة ما هكذا الظن بك. ولا أخبرن بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب، وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي للبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين، يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها أضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك، وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك، وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي. صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي، فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رباه؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات، ما ذلك الظن بك، ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته، وكل ذنب أذنبته، وكل قبيح أسررته، وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني، وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بذري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قوي على خدمتك جوارحي واشتد على العظيمة جوانحي وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في البارزين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد ومن كادني فكد واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخصهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقل لي عثرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا رب نصبت وجهي وإليك يا رب مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سري الرضا يا سري الرضا يا سري الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا سابغ النعام يا دافع النقام يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام يا عالما لا يؤلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا
اللهم صل على محمد
واجل فرج أحسن الله عليك. يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذريتك، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن عجل الله فرجاه وسهل الله مخرجاه وظهوره. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بار دیگر بآواز بلند صلوات. Going to recite few share of a manqabat. Before I start, I just want for children to know the religious poetry is written in many different ways, and you often hear from us that I'm going to recite a manqabat or a salam or a marsiya. There are slight differences in these. Manqabat is normally written in the set of 2 verses. Each two verses is called a share. But it is always, manqabat is for explaining the fazilat of a character, normally from Ahl Bayt or Masumin. There is only the only thing which is explained in a manqabat is fazilat, as opposed to salam, which is also written in the same way in the set of 2 verses, each share, but the initial part is about fazilat, and they are at the end, there are some verses which are for masaib. In manqabat there are no masaib, in salam there are. Manqabat is always read for the happy occasion, for the wiladat. Salam can be read in majlis for shahada. And then there's a marsiya. Marsiya is normally a set of 6 verses. And there can be many verses in a marsiya, and it's normally written to explain the events of Karbala or shahada of Masumin. So there are slight differences. So manqabat, which I'm going to read today, is for Imam Jaffer Sadiq. It's all about his fazilat. One of the problems is that the imagination of poetry, you can translate the Urdu or Persian word into English, but the imagination which the poet put into that cannot be translated. But once I read, if you want me to explain, I can explain it to you, to the people who won't understand. But Bawaz Balan Salawat. مدحت جعفر صادق میں زباں کھلتی ہے. مدحت جعفر صادق میں زباں کھلتی ہے. سچے موتی ہوں جہاں پر وہ دکان کھلتی ہے. سچے موتی ہوں جہاں پر وہ دکان کھلتی ہے. علم کے نور سے ذہنوں میں اجالا کر لو. علم کے نور سے ذہنوں میں اجالا کر لو. چشم اعجاز شہن شاہ زماں کھلتی ہے. چشم اعجاز شہن شاہ زماں کھلتی ہے. مدحت جعفر صادق میں زباں کھلتی ہے. خوشبوئے باغ جنا پہلے سے ہوتی ہے وہاں. خوشبوئے باغ جنا پہلے سے ہوتی ہے وہاں. قبر مومن کے لیے جب بھی جہاں کھلتی ہے. قبر مومن کے لیے جب بھی جہاں کھلتی ہے. جس کا جی چاہے وہ آئین محمد لے لے. جس کا دل چاہے وہ آئین محمد محمد لے لے بزم میں جعفر صادق کی زباں کھلتی ہے، جس کا جی چاہے وہ آئین محمد لے لے، بزم میں جعفر صادق کی زباں کھلتی ہے، سب ورق مسند مولا سے زبان خامہ، خامہ means قلم pen which you write، سب ورق مسند مولا سے زبان خامہ، جب بھی کھلتی ہے پے امن و امان کھلتی ہے، سب ورق مسند مولا سے زبان خامہ، جب بھی کھلتی ہے پے امن و امان کھلتی ہے، ان کی توصیف میں کیا کوئی زباں کھولے گا، ان کی توصیف میں کیا کوئی زباں کھولے گا، جن کی توصیف میں قرآن کی زباں کھلتی ہے، جن کی توصیف میں قرآن کی زباں کھلتی ہے، مدحت جعفر صادق میں زباں کھلتی ہے، سچے موتی ہو جہاں پر وہ دکان کھلتی ہے، صلوات محمد۔
امام حسین کے غم کو یاد رکھنا ہے تو مرثیہ پڑھ سکتے ہیں انشاءاللہ نیکسٹ ٹائم اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد، جو پڑھ بھی لیا جو پہلا پڑھا تھا وہ بھی
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على Please open your Qur'ans to chapter number 16, Surah An-Nahl, verse 106. Chapter 16, verse 106. Before we begin tonight's majlis, just to remind us that this Saturday there has been a request for more hands to be able to support the garden project. You've probably seen on the WhatsApp group the request for help and the specific tasks that are set out. So we have a message from Salim uncle, who said that so far we've only got one person who's committed to helping this weekend. If we can ask for more volunteers for this Saturday. The weather is supposed to be quite nice too, he says. So if we have some time, we need volunteers for that this Saturday, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the love of our sixth holy Imam, Jaffer ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq, one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala محمد وآله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد محمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم من كفر بالله من بعد إيمانه إلا من أكره وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان ولكن من شرح بالكفر صدرا فعليهم غضب من الله ولهم عذاب عظيم آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected teachers, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our discussion tonight is to honor the birth anniversary of our sixth holy Imam, Jaffer ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Of course, we celebrate his birth on the 17th of Rabi al-Awwal, which coincides with the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, because on that day we normally focus our attention on the Prophet. We don't want to let the opportunity to discuss and to discover Imam Sadiq alayhi salam to pass us by. And so tonight, inshallah, we dedicate it to a discussion regarding him. Out of all of the A'imma alayhimus salam, we normally say Imam Sadiq alayhi salam had relatively the most freedom to be able to express Islam al-Haqiqi, the true religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from amongst Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Of course, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam went through a number of years of oppression, even had to pull himself back from the public. Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam had to let go of the Khilafah in order to survive and for the Shia themselves to survive and the Ummah to not break up. Imam al-Hussein, salamullahi alayhi majma'een, he was slaughtered for his revival and the movement that he went through. Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam is placed under house arrest. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam is given relative freedom. But Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam's freedom is the most because he undergoes a period of not only a diversity of thought, an opportunity where the Ummah themselves want to be able to learn, but there is, as you know, a war taking place between Banu Umayyah and Banu Abbas. And as they are fighting and killing one another and squabbling over Khilafat, there is a window of opportunity where their eyes are focused on each other and not focused on the statements of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Despite this, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, in my words, doesn't go full throttle in many issues. In fact, the opposite is the case. From all of the A'imma alayhimus salam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam stresses and teaches his companions of the issues of wisdom in their spreading of the faith, and even taqiyya and sort of biting their tongue and understanding the wider context in which they are still going to find themselves in, and warning them that if you don't tread very carefully, very lightly, then ultimately it will be you and I that suffer because we have not understood how to be able to spread this faith. How many times have you heard those famous sayings where Imam alayhi salam says, call to us, but without using your tongues. called to us through your actions. Meaning that first and foremost, it should be that people recognize you for your akhlaq, for your behavior, before even the way in which you do tabligh and da'wah, before you actually call people towards Islam or towards the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. بِغَيْرِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ. Do it without using your tongues before anything else. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam stressed the wisdom of understanding how to be able to navigate those circumstances, even though there was the most amount of freedom relatively at that time. Why? Because the freedom that they had was only going to be very short-lived. You see, if the companions and the Imam himself was to express everything openly, then tomorrow when that window of opportunity shuts upon them, they have habituated themselves to speaking about certain personalities in a way, or being more open than they should, or not, or rather sharing the secrets of the Imam in a way in which they shouldn't be sharing. Then what happens? Then the rain of fire and terror is going to come down upon them and upon Imam alayhi salam. And so he stresses the wisdom in spreading the message of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and navigating the circumstances. He wanted them to understand there's a principle, but in every different scenario that you find yourself in, the way in which you apply that principle must be very, very different. There's a principle. The principle stays the same. Your love for Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, your hatred for the enemies of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, that is unyielding, that doesn't change. But depending on your audience, the circumstances you find yourself in, the opportunities, how you know that's going to affect the immediate, the medium, the long-term future, the overall health of the ummah, the overall security of the ummah, the overall unity of the ummah, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam would stress upon them acting differently in very, very different circumstances. And I want to be able to demonstrate this to you, to show you the wisdom of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and how he would teach his companions to navigate those various different situations and scenarios that they would find themselves in, inshaAllah. Sheikh Shumali, senior, Sheikh Muhammad Ali Shumali, may Allah bless him for his incredible work, he adds to this point with a comment that is very profound, very, very deep. He says this: Imam Sadiq alayhi salam didn't encourage a revolution, didn't encourage the overthrowing of a government, didn't participate in that overthrow that Banu Abbas did himself. He didn't participate, didn't encourage his companions to participate, and he never went further in his language that might inflame the situation either against him in the medium term or against him in the short term. And then he says this, Sheikh Shumali, he makes two incredible points. He says, number one, if you look at the number of companions of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, you will see dozens of them are actually non-Shia. It's very important to understand. When I say companions, I mean people who every day are going to the feet of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and learning from him. And they are narrating his ahadith. You know, it's really interesting. You know, sometimes we have a throwaway sort of statement. We say that there are two imams of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, two of the four major imams, that are direct students of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, correct? Right? We'll say, for example, Imam Abu Hanifa, and we'll say Imam Malik ibn Anas, correct? Two students directly from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. They quote from him, they praise him. Now imagine, Imam Abu Hanifa believes in whom? Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Aisha, Hafsa, and so on and so forth, correct? There's no dispute that Imam Abu Hanifa believes in them as being righteous, the leaders of Islam, the Khulafa, and so on and so forth. Imam Malik ibn Anas believes in the same, correct or not? Do you imagine Imam Abu Hanifa would have been going every day to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam to learn from him, to take from him, to narrate from him, If Imam Sadiq alayhi salam had been abusing those people in front of him, would he have gone there? Yes or no? Would he have gone there? No. Would Imam Malik ibn Anas have gone there? No. So those dozens of Sunni companions of various different sciences, sometimes they are scholars of ahadith, scholars of tafsir, scholars of aqa'id, scholars, various sciences, religious sciences and even non-sciences. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is a master of all the different sciences, correct? So can you imagine living in Medina al-Munawwara at that time, which is the majority Sunni, as in we don't use that word historically, but non-Shia, including his enemies, people from Banu Umayyah, people from Banu Abbas. How many hundreds of narrators are there from the school of the non-Shia from him? Do you find any of those saying Imam Sadiq alayhi salam used to abuse Abu Bakr? Do you find any of them saying Imam Sadiq alayhi salam used to curse Umar ibn al-Khattab in Medina, in Kufa? Do you find one hadith mentioned? You don't. What does that show you? Sheikh Shumali points this out. How can you have someone who has hundreds of non-Shia students all saying how he's the top alim of the city, he's the most righteous alim of the city, we narrate from him, they would have hated him, disdained from him, turned away from him if they saw in him the abuse that might come from others or is said to come from others. Do you see that? So clearly Imam Sadiq alayhi salam wasn't encouraging or participating in that sort of methodology. Number one. Number two, Sheikh Shumali says something else which is very, very deep. He says, look, why didn't Imam Sadiq alayhi salam encourage participation in the revolution? Or maybe lead his own revolution? If he was the top alim of the time, and even the leaders of the Sunni ulama at that time were listening to him, following him, understanding him, quoting from him, surely they would have also supported him. No? He said, look, what good is it to replace one government with another if the people themselves don't understand how to navigate or how to deal with these things? You see, if you replace one government with another, but the people are going to employ the same aqa'id, or the same politics, or the same economy, or the same, then what difference does it make? It's just another government in a different name. Or let me reword it to you in our context. Tomorrow a Labour Party comes in. But if the people haven't understood what the essential challenges are in the country, then what will genuinely change? It's just a different label, isn't it? It's a different color. It goes from blue to red to yellow. What difference does it make? Doctor will tell you, as an example, if tomorrow, if they're not going to actually fund the NHS, for example, or fund the police properly, or there's not going to be any genuine reform in immigration, or the way in which government talks about immigrants, whatever it may be, then what difference does it make to the country? Do you see what I mean? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was far wiser than this. Do you think I'm going to support just the shifting of Banu Umayyah to Banu Abbas? For what? They're going to slaughter us tomorrow the same way Banu Umayyah slaughtered us. So he needed to teach what? To Shia and non-Shia. How to understand these matters properly. How to navigate. Doesn't matter who comes in tomorrow, who you elect, which caliph comes in. They're both going to hate you. They're both going to exploit you. They're both going to oppress you. You have to learn your religion properly, and then you can deal with the other issues. And this is what comes from tonight's discussion, inshallah. So I want to have a look at a few ahadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, but first, of course, to always couch the discussion in the Holy Quran. Please open your Qurans to chapter number 16, Surah An-Nahl, verse 106. Very famous ayah of the Quran that tells us that the principle remains the same, but how you do things in public or how you react in different contexts must change. If you're in one room, the way in which you act has to be one way. If you're in another room, you may have to act very differently given the context in which you find yourself in. This is part of the wisdom of our sixth Imam, Jaffer ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. this ayah is revealed about whom? Ammar ibn Yasir. Well, you all know Ammar is one of the greatest companions of Islam. And you all know that he was martyred with Imam Ali alayhi salam, and you all know his parents as Yasir and Sumayya, the first martyrs of Islam. طيب. Ammar, as you know, feigned kufr in order to avoid the same fate as his parents, which was to be killed, martyred. Inside his heart, of course, he continued to believe in Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, and he told them, I don't believe in God anymore, one God anymore, and so they freed him and let him live. Famously in the hadith, it says that he is feeling guilty for this, and he goes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in order to tell him what he has done. The Prophet commends him, praises him for what he's done. And he actually says to him, if they are to capture you again, and the same thing happens, you do the same action. If they do the same, you do the same. In fact, even if it's 100 times they capture you and threaten you with torture, 100 times you have to feign kufr. Why? The principle remains the same. Allah knows what is in your heart. But in the outside, you have to be able to act a certain way to preserve things. To preserve me, the Prophet. To preserve you, your life. To preserve the rest of the early mu'mineen, that they don't also get tortured. You have a bigger duty than just beyond yourself. The deen of Allah is bigger than you. You see, it's very easy for a person to speak what they want. Subhanallah. It's the easiest thing to talk and to talk and to talk and to ramble and ramble. It's actually harder to be able to hold your tongue. That's more difficult. Silence is harder than speech. Look at this ayah. This ayah was revealed immediately after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commended Ammar ibn Yasir. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Man kafara billah min ba'di imanihi. Whoever disbelieves in Allah after having believed. Then of course this is problem. Illa, except whom? Man ukriha, the one who is forced into saying he disbelieves. Except the one who is compelled. وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. But at that time when he's pretending to have kufr, his heart actually has itmi'nan, surety of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَكِنْ مَنْ شَرَحَ بِالْكُفْرِ صَدْرًا فَعَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. And he who actually genuinely opens his heart to disbelief, has the wrath of Allah upon him. Of course, if you believe and then do kufr, then this entails the wrath of Allah. What happens? وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. For that person, he has a grievous chastisement. But so long as the inside is honest and pure and retain iman, then how you present yourself is less important. And more important is that you present yourself in protecting your faith, protecting your deen, if it requires you to be able to do so in that particular time. Imagine Imam Sadiq alayhi salam at a time in which he has relative freedom. He encourages, commands and demands taqiyya, the dissimulation of your faith in order to preserve yourselves, in order to ensure that people don't understand everything that you know. You see, if you speak everything you know, sometimes, what you think you know is right is actually wrong. Just think about this for a second. Imagine all the collective things you've heard in your life. Can you guarantee 100% of everything you've ever heard, ever read is correct? No, you can't, right? You've read things from articles, you've read things on the news, you've listened to majalis, you've listened to stories from your family. You can't say everything is true. Therefore, if you tell everything you've ever heard, guaranteed some of it is going to be wrong. Some of it is going to be lies and that you are passing on. To protect yourself, you have to make sure that you are choosy with what you say, to whom you say it. This is normal, let alone with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because not everyone can understand what you understand. Not everyone has shared in what you have shared in. Not everyone has been gifted what you have been gifted. And therefore we have to be very discreet with whom we talk and with how we talk with them. Hadith says there was an atheist who was abusive to God Allah, and that person would go to Mecca, go to Masjidul Haram, by the Kaaba, the most sanctified place in the physical world. He would go to the Kaaba and he would abuse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The companions of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam got mad, brought him. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam sat with him. You know, the narration mentions that when the man was telling Imam Sadiq alayhi salam his proofs for disbelieving in God and arguing that God doesn't exist because he's an atheist, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam sat there with a smile on his face and allowed him to talk, allowed him to explain himself, allowed him to put forth his arguments, and then gave his responses back to that man. You see the rahmah, the patience, the wisdom, the tolerance of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Because if he had responded rashly or responded abruptly with him, then what would have happened to that individual? Actually, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam did the opposite with him and bore very, very patiently with this particular individual. It's an incredible hadith which I want you to really focus on, or even write down, or maybe tonight on the WhatsApp group we can share it. It's an amazing hadith, and if you think about it in the context of what I'm trying to tell you about different people from different faiths and different sects, they cannot necessarily bear and understand what we have with us. These are not my words, this is from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam himself. I'm going to read you the hadith in the Arabic, translate it for you inshaAllah. This hadith comes to us from the companion Ammar ibn al-Ahwas, from our sixth Imam Jaffer ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. The hadith says, people are created with different qualities. Some people have one of those qualities, two of those qualities, three of those qualities. And you cannot impose upon a person more than the capacity and the qualities that he has. So let's just talk about Shia for a moment. A Shia may have X, Y, and Z quality. But if you ask him to do something in which he doesn't have that quality of, he will fall short of that. Similarly, if you are to ask of a Sunni or speak to a Sunni or a non-Muslim and they have A, B, and C quality, but they don't possess D, E, and F, if you're asking of them to do something, to understand something, to bear something with qualities D, E, and F, they will not be able to do so. This is Imam's statement. I'm going to read you the hadith. There's a famous saying, I don't know whether it's from Einstein, I've heard it attributed to him. Sheikh Facebook and Sheikh Google normally attribute this sort of saying to Einstein, but something like, if you judge a fish with the ability to climb a tree, yeah, is this right? If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you'll be sorely disappointed in the fish. Can the fish climb the tree? No. And Imam actually says this in this hadith. Yeah, maybe Einstein stole it from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, I don't know. Hadith says the following: Inna Allah azza wa jal wada'a al-imana ala sab'ati ashum. Allah the Almighty has placed faith with 7 qualities, or on 7 qualities. So Iman comes with 7 different qualities. What are those qualities? Iman is built on these 7. Ala al-bir, upon piety. Was-sidq, honesty. Wal-yaqeen, certitude. Wal-rida, satisfaction with Allah. Wal-wafa, loyalty. Wal-ilm, knowledge. Wal-hilm, bearing patiently whilst angry. How many qualities? 7 different qualities. Iman is built upon having these 7. ثم, then, قسم ذلك بين الناس. Allah divided those 7 qualities amongst people, amongst all the people. فمن جعل فيه هذه السبعة الأسهم فهو كامل محتمل. Whoever has managed to uphold all 7 qualities has definitely perfected his faith and is capable then of preserving all 7 qualities. وقسم لبعض الناس السهم ولبعض السهمين ولبعض الثلاثة حتى انتهوا إلى السبعة. He then granted some people only one of those 7 qualities. He granted some people 2 of those qualities, and he granted some people 3 of those qualities, up to all 7 qualities. So what are the 7? Piety, honesty, certitude, being content with Allah's decree, loyalty, knowledge, and bearing patiently whilst angry. 7 different qualities. Now think about this very carefully. Are there people in your own lives that you know have one of those qualities? Yes, inshallah. Are there some that you know with only 2 of those qualities? You say, yeah, I know someone who's got 3 of those, but when it comes to stopping his anger, he has no hilm. When he gets angry, Ya Allah, it's Yawm al-Qiyamah. Yeah? For example, some of you are thinking now about this question. Who has 7 qualities? Who has all 7 of those? MashaAllah. Shawkat. Yes. Yes, Ahsan. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. It's very sweet. It's very sweet. I don't dare ask who has only one. This majlis could turn into a wafat majlis very quickly. Huh? That's what I was going to say. Uncle, you want to just start the marthiyah now? Yeah? Imam says, Allah has gifted some 1 quality to some, all the way up to 7 for some. Now this is the last part of the hadith. Think about this very carefully. لا تحملوا على صاحب السهم سهمين. Don't force upon the one who only has 1 of those qualities 2. ولا على صاحب السهمين ثلاثة. And don't force the one who only has 2 of those qualities to have 3 of those qualities. فَتَبْهَذُوهُمْ, lest you overburden them. You understand? Some people, I don't mean it badly, some people, they don't have the ilm that you have, or they don't have ilm. They may not understand what you're saying. Some don't have hilm. They can't bear what you have to say. Some don't have rida, that whenever something happens in their life, they don't turn to Allah with thankfulness and gratitude. Some don't have wafa, loyalty, so that when they hear about Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam being given wilaya, they don't have that quality of loyalty to him, such that they will even go to his enemies. Right? Famously, Abu Hurairah, what did he say? Salah with Ali is good, but food with Muawiyah is also good. So when I want to pray, I go with Ali ibn Abi Talib. But when I need, my stomach to be full, I go this way. There's some people who don't have loyalty. I can't expect loyalty from this man. He doesn't have it. So now Imam says, don't overburden some people, because you're going to push them away. It's a hadith from the 6th Imam. Your famous hadith, all of you have heard this. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam has a narration which sort of follows this flavor, this trend. He says one day, one of the neighbors, one of the mu'mineen, he had a neighbor who was non-Muslim, and then he converted, and the neighbor said to the man said to his neighbor, let's go to the masjid. Let's go for masjid for Salat al-Fajr. He goes for Salat al-Fajr, or he goes for he said, let's go for Salat al-Layl. He goes for Salat al-Fajr. He said, why don't we stay until the sunrise? We'll do lots of dua, we'll recite Quran, mashallah. Neighbor says, yeah, all right, no problem, I'll stick with you. Then after sunrise, he says, why don't we wait in the masjid until Dhuhr? We'll continue doing ibadah. Yeah, all right, Dhuhr comes, he says, all right, now we'll do Dhuhr. After Dhuhr, he says, why don't we wait till Salat al-Asr? They have to wait the whole afternoon. Then he says all the way until Isha, until Salat al-Layl at night. What happens? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam's story. Says that man got up and left. He said, this religion is not for me. It's too heavy. It's too burdensome. I can't deal with this. You want to sit in the masjid all day doing ta'qibat, dua, Quran, debate? No problem. I have a business to run. I have family to look after. It's too much. And he left Islam. He cannot bear. There are only some people. Not everyone's Imam Khomeini. Not everyone's Ali ibn Abi Talib. You see? You can't ask for someone something that they don't have. If the cup is only this much, it can only bear this much water. If you put more than it, it will spill out. It's very simple. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam understands the nature of the human being here. Now imagine this, not at the level of one person, not at the level of Medina, but at the level of the entirety of the ummah and the weaknesses and the strengths that lie in so many, many, many hundreds of thousands of people across the entirety of the Muslim ummah. How is supposed to bear patiently with people? How is supposed to understand their weaknesses? How is supposed to understand their shortcomings? How is supposed to deal with these people in this way? Now, if you've understood this hadith, as I said, it's very, very, very powerful. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam follows up with another hadith, Jaffer ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. There's a hadith where he says the following. And Ibn Abi Ya'fur, the companion, Ibn Abi Ya'fur says the following. قال عليه السلام, Imam said, اتقوا الله على دينكم. Be very careful over your religion. Really interesting, you know. Imagine an Imam telling you, listen, be careful of how you treat your deen. It's not an ordinary statement. Normally, no one would say that. He would normally, ittaqullah. You be wary of whom? Allah. He doesn't say that. Ittaqu ala dinikum. Be careful of this with Allah, but over what? Your own faith, your own deen, the deen of Allah. How you deal with the deen of Allah itself. What does he say? Ittaqullah ala dinikum. Wahjabuhu bittaqiyah. Hijab. Do hijab over it with taqiyah. Veil your faith through taqiyah. Through dissimulation of your faith. Not always telling everybody everything you know, everything you've understood, everything you've believed in. فَإِنَّهُ لَا إِيمَانَ لِمَنْ لَا تَقِيَّ لَهُ. The one who doesn't have taqiyah doesn't have iman. إِنَّمَا أَنْتُمْ فِي النَّاسِ كَالنَّحْلِ فِي الطَّيْرِ. For you, amongst the wider people, you are like a honeybee amongst birds. You understand the analogy? Imam says, لو أن الطير تعلم ما في جوف النحل ما بقي منها شيء إلا أكلته. If the bird knows about the sweetness of the honey in the bee would not remain alive, it would be eaten up. Your situation, the Imam says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ النَّاسَ عَلِمُوا مَا فِي أَجْوَافِكُمْ. And if the people knew the sweetness that is inside you, أَنَّكُمْ تُحِبُّونَنَا أَهْلِ الْبَيْتِ, that you love us أهل البيت عليهم السلام, لِأَكَلُوكُمْ, they will eat you up. Do you understand? Imam says, look, you have to understand the sweetness that is with you. Not everyone can bear that sweetness. Some people are diabetic. Not everyone can have the same cake or the amount of sugars in your chai that you are going to have. Do you understand? And if you were to give it to them, it would actually cause an illness in them. You understand? Not everyone can have cake. If you give them that cake, what happens to them? They'll become ill. Am I understanding the analogy right? Yeah? It's my analogy now. I'm moving on from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam's analogy. I'm just being sure doctor agrees with me. If you give someone something that they cannot have, they cannot digest, they will vomit it out or they will fall sick through it. In the same way, if someone spiritually and intellectually and emotionally is not capable of bearing what you have, when you give it to him, it will cause more harm than khalas. This is the wisdom of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. And this is just a few hadith I'm giving to you for you to understand. If you understand this, you understand why the Imam navigated his people so carefully during the time when they had the most freedom. Yet, even at that time, he pulled back. Now, one last hadith I want to show you, and sometimes I build on discussion, so sometimes we will revert back to these discourses more and more and more. But I want to show you that a hadith exists around Imam Sadiq alayhi salam that lay claim to certain behavior of his, especially towards the sensitivities that we're talking about with the mukhalifeen, with the a'da of Allah, the opponents and the enemies of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. It's a hadith that the scholars are divided on. Those who are more mutashaddideen, يعني they're more severe in their tabarrah. You all know tawalla and tabarrah. Those who are more severe in their tabarrah, amongst those fuqaha and ulama, they accept this hadith. Those who are more precise, they reject this hadith. They say the sanad is weak, and even the text, the matan, the content of the hadith is very weak as well. But even then, I want you to hear the hadith, how it's mentioned, and I want you to think about these sorts of texts, because you'll hear them all the time. Different Maulanas will tell you different things. I want you to navigate some of these texts in accordance with the way I've shown you Imam Sadiq alayhi salam actually worked. Yeah? So this hadith comes from two companions. Al-Husayn ibn Thawir, or Thawir, and Abi Salama as-Sarraj. Qala. So these two companions say, Sami'na Aba Abdullah alayhi salam. We heard Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. We too heard Imam Sadiq alayhi salam say, or we heard from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, وَهُوَ يَلْعَنُ فِي دُبُرٍ. He would curse at the end of his salah. He would do la'na at the end of each of his salat, according to the hadith, okay? كل مكتوبة أربعة من الرجال وأربعا من النساء. We heard that he would curse, do la'an, after every salah, 4 men and 4 women. Now the companions continue the hadith. This is not my words, this is the continuation. They say, we heard him curse 4 men and 4 women after each salah. Fulan wa fulan wa fulan wa Muawiyah. What is fulan? Someone. Yani no name. Ahsan. Fulan wa fulan wa fulan wa Muawiyah. So apparently Imam does it. Okay? وَيُسَمِّيهِمْ, and he would name them. This is in the hadith. So even though companion says fulan, 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 he is saying in the hadith, and Imam after his salah named fulan, named fulan, named fulan, wa Muawiyah. Wa fulana. So that this is from the women. Wa fulana, wa fulana, wa Hind, wa Hakam. Who is whom? Ukht Muawiyah, the sister of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. So fulana wa fulana, no name, and Hind, we all know Hind, the eater of the liver of Hazrat Hamza alayhi salam, and Hakam, the sister of Muawiyah. So again, according to the companion, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam names them, but he narrates it by saying fulana wa fulana. Now this version of the hadith is mentioned in Al-Kafi and Tahdhib al-Ahkam. So 2 of our earliest 4 books. In another version of the narration, other scholars have said that actually the hadith is reported in this way. We heard Imam Sadiq alayhi salam curse 4 men, 4 women after each prayer. At-Taymi, Al-Adawi, that one, and Muawiyah, and he called them by name. So At-Taymi refers to the first caliph. Al-Adawi refers to the second caliph. That one refers to the third caliph. And Muawiyah is obviously named by name. Think about this. Let's say we accept the tradition. There are two companions of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Is Imam saying this in public? No. We heard Imam Sadiq alayhi salam say it. So privately, Imam is praying his salah and he's doing something after his salah privately, if we accept the hadith. Then you can see he is drilled into his companions to say that even if Imam Sadiq alayhi salam did the act, when they conveyed the act in the hadith, they didn't even name the person or the people. What did they say? Fulan wa fulan wa fulan wa Muawiyah. Fulana wa fulana. Wa. Can you see? So even if we accept the hadith, Imam did something privately, and the way in which it was conveyed was with the absence of certain things, the naming of certain people. Do you understand? Can you see what sunnah the Imam is showing? Even if we accept that he did the act, when it's conveyed beyond him, it has to be done with strategy, with knowledge of protection of the Shia, knowledge of the protection of the Imams. You understand? If we don't accept the hadith, why don't we accept the hadith? Well, firstly, the narrator of the hadith is being known as Mughali. He's been known in the books of Ilm al-Rajal. He's rejected as a sound narrator because he's a person that often exaggerates. So we don't accept the hadith anyway. Second reason why we don't accept the hadith is if Imam Sadiq alayhi salam names them, why are you dropping the names? If he said it, you sammi him, and he named Fulan, why are you dropping the names and saying Fulan wa Fulan wa Fulan? Can you see? Or in the second hadith, if you say he named them, he calls him At-Taymi from Banu Tamim. Well, if he named him, why are you making by his kunyah? Can you see? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is very, very rich and deep in his understanding. And what happens is we get very confused by these acts. Even in Ziyarat Ashura, there are certain people that are cursed by name, and there are some people who are not cursed by name. وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ آلَ زِيَادٍ وَآلَ مَرْوَانٍ وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ بَنِي أُمَيَّةَ قَاطِبًا وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ ابْنَ مَرْجَانَ وَمُعَاوِيَةَ وَيَزِيدَ ibn Muawiyah خَامِسًا. Curse upon him 5 times. Allahumma la'an awwala dhalimin dhalama haqqa Muhammadin. Can you see that it's not named? Some people are named, some people are not named. Can you see the methodology of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam? And he wants us to understand that. He wants us to understand the delicacy of that notion. As he says, there are some people that cannot bear what you have to bear. You have to be very, very careful and discreet with how you be with those people. Especially today where everything is public. This lecture is available now on the internet. Tomorrow you write something on Instagram. Tomorrow you write something on Facebook. Tomorrow you write something on Twitter. We have to understand that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam's wisdom is for all times. And this is why he emphasized things the way in which he emphasized. With that in mind, you can see why his deen spread so far and wide. Why so many from even his opponents would spread his deen on his behalf without even realizing what they're doing. Because they loved him. They wanted to spread his word. Because none of them were offended by what he said. So none of them ran away from him. And this is the wisdom that I want to humbly share with you tonight in honor of our 6th Imam, Jaffer ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Please raise your hands, join me in dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the appearance of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, to allow us to be alongside him at all times in our life and in our death. If we're to pass away from this world before his coming, Ya Allah, raise us from our graves so that we can partake in the victories of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Ya Allah, grant us the ziyarah of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam fi dunya wal akhirah, and help us to be able to express his religion in the very best of ways. Please conclude this discussion with a loud salawat, and then welcome brother, inshallah. We'll have a qasida in honor of our sixth Imam, Jaffer al-Sadiq. Salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. كلهم محمد، كلهم نور.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. علی شیر خدا حیدر حیدر، غرور کبریا حیدر حیدر، وسیع مصطفیٰ حیدر حیدر. علی شیر خدا حیدر حیدر، غرور کبریا حیدر حیدر، وسیع مصطفیٰ حیدر حیدر. تیرا دربار دنیا میں مقدر ساز ہے مولا، جسے پرواز تو دے دے وہی شہباز ہے مولا. پسے پردہ محمد سے سرے معراج جو بولا، ہمیں لہجے سے لگتا ہے تیری آواز ہے مولا. سفیر کبریا حیدر حیدر، محمد کی دعا حیدر حیدر، غرور کبریا حیدر حیدر. علی شیر خدا حیدر حیدر، غرور کبریا حیدر حیدر، وسیع مصطفیٰ حیدر حیدر. بر محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أزور سيدي ومولاي ومعتمدي ورجائي وذخري وذخيرتي في دنياي وآخرتي، مولاي أبا عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والتسليم، أصالة عن نفسي ونيابة عن والدي ووالدي والدي، وعن إخواني وأخواتي، وعن جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات، بالخصوص من قلدني الزيارة والدعاء قربة وطاعة إلى الله تعالى. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله، السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام، السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى، السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا ثأر الله وابن ثأره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر، وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام الجاهلية بأنجاسها، ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى، والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله، بأبي أنت وأمي يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل السماوات والأرض، فلعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتهيأت لقتالك. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، قصدت حرمك وأتيت إلى مشهدك، أسأل الله بالشأن الذي لك عنده وبالمحل الذي لك لديه أن يصلي على محمد وآل محمد، وأن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.